morning, and actually it is a good morning as we see what's playing out behind us. We had a fire on top of one of our cranes. Thank God that the injuries to 4 individuals were minor. The FDNY will go through the extent of those injuries. We're joined here by the full complement of our city agencies that are going to coordinate to ensure that we, number one, fully extinguish the fire. Number two, make sure that everyone in the surrounding buildings are safe and make a determination of what extent of evacuation. And number three, start the process of dismantling the crane that's on top. We're going to make sure that it's done in a very orderly fashion. As you see from the debris on the street, this could have been much worse. We are extremely fortunate, number one, that we were not during the busy time of the day. As you know, the Port Authority is here. Many of the buses moved through here. We were extremely fortunate. But we're also fortunate that the men and women of FDNY and our first responders responded in such a manner and properly made the right evaluation of how to look at the fire that we were presented and the crisis we were presented, and coming up with the right effective solution to minimize any additional injuries. So I want to turn it over to the Deputy Commissioner of FDNY, and then we will turn it over to the Department of Buildings to give an analysis of the structure of the existing crane that's here, and then we'll open up to a few questions. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the Mayor is correct. This is a good morning. This could have been a lot worse. At 7:25 this morning, we got a report of a fire in the engine compartment of the crane. And we're talking about the engine compartment above the roof line, about 45 stories up. As our fire units responded to the scene, we had a collapse. The top part of the crane, the boom, and a 16-ton load crashed to the ground. At that point, we had injuries to civilians and firefighters, but they were minor. We have 4 injuries to civilians and 2 to our firefighters. Minor injuries, one of our firefighters are having chest pains and being transported to the hospital. What we should know about this is that we work together to evacuate the buildings. Our firefighters were in the surrounding buildings, evacuated the buildings, and also stretched hose lines to the top floors. At this moment, from our drone pictures, we're able to see that most of the fire has been extinguished, but presently we have a 5th alarm assignment, over 200 firefighters and EMS personnel at the scene. But let me turn it over to the Department of Buildings for their assessment.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Jimmy Otto, Commissioner, Department of Buildings. As the Mayor and the Chief said, we're really fortunate this morning. But this is not a mayor who relies on luck, so it's my job and our agency's job to find out exactly what happened here. This is quick moving, don't have a lot of answers or all the answers. We will get them to you in time. We have a building under construction. It's intended to be a 54-story mixed-use building. The general contractor is Monadnock Construction. All permits for the building, for the crane operation, were pulled, operating per those permits. There was a prior unrelated incident early at the site with this contractor. When they do an excavation, they hit a Con Ed vault, but there are no other incidents at this site. There are lots of people who are part of the crane operation. There's an engineer that writes up the plans. There's essentially a general contractor. There's the user. We will be looking at all of those folks. And what we intend to do, similar to post the Ann Street garage situation, we are putting in place a contract so that we will have an independent assessment as well. So the folks who were involved in the crane operation, the general contractor of the project, we're looking at all, as I'm sure you will be, we're looking at all of their histories to see what those stories are. Mayor?
Open to any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Hold on, we're gonna take questions one at a time.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, was somebody operating this pad and what ignited the pad?
FDNY.
Crane operator was operating the crane at that point and was lifting 16 tons of concrete. And that crane operator saw that the fire started and tried to extinguish it. So we give a lot of credit to the crane operator, but the fire overwhelmed that operator and had to exit the crane.
And how, he was able to get out? Was he safe?
The crane operator was able to get out and is safe.
How did the contractor
Yeah, go ahead.
We're extinguishing it with hose lines. We stretched
how did
with hand extinguishers.
Okay, the building commissioner too. Just talk about the crane while hitting the 55510.
Yeah, the second building. So our DOB structural engineers were en route before we started. They're probably here. We will look at the structural integrity of the building that was hit. We'll look at the structural integrity, obviously, of the building that was worked on. We have a specific cranes and derricks unit. All of the DOB personnel is here or en route, and when they have a chance to assess it, we will have more answers for you.
This is a crane from. It looks like it's a crane from Loma. A second crane collapse from Loma. The first one in 2008 deadly. Another crane collapse from the same operator.
Well, again, as I said earlier, there is the engineer. We have who the engineer is. That's Steve Valhado Engineering. You have the crane user, which is Cross Country, and the crane owner, which is New York City Crane and Equipment. And again, give us some time. We will be looking at all of the parties, their records, and we will get you more information, more specifics, as quickly as possible.
How did that engine ignite? Like, what happened? How is that possible?
Part of the review to determine exactly what happened. Once we get up there, once we're able to look at it and do an analysis, we can find out exactly what's happened. It's all preliminary.
Repeat my question. What was the building that happened and which was the building it hit? The address.
We have the address, Jimmy. Also,
Sorry.
of the address.
Where it happened, the building that it hit. Can you tell us the addresses? Or
It's 550 10th Avenue, and I believe 555 10th Avenue is the building that was hit.
Can you tell us, were there any construction workers inside the building? Were they working at the time? Was anybody injured? Did they all have to evacuate? How were they injured?
You know if any of the construction workers inside?
The injuries were all minor to 4 civilians, which included some of the workers. So they were very fortunate.
So none inside, none of the construction workers inside the building.
As we know, as of now, they were on the outside when the debris fell.
Have you any of the fire chiefs about the operational issues?
Whoa. Y'all see this guy here? Y'all know how
Talk
we
about
rock.
the arm that fell off. Like, what happened there? How did it disengage from the cab? And what did it hit?
So I'd like you to picture what was taking place. The crane operates above the roof line. And on that above roof line, there's a beam that goes out. And that's carrying the weight of concrete and that weight of 16 tons is attached by a cable. And as the fire heats the cable weakens to a point where it loses its strength, and that's where the collapse occurred.
Can you tell us about the getting water on it? There's 5 alarms. What was the difficulty there?
The difficulty when you have a fire so high up is to be able to supply water to the building, stretch hose lines from inside the building and across the street. And that takes manpower of firefighters, but it's also that we're able to search the surrounding buildings and evacuate it. And that's why it's a 5th alarm.
And so attached to the boom, matter of fact, attached to the boom was holding concrete. That's when you see this all over the street. Because in addition to the boom, you had something that was holding a substantial number of concrete that it was moving around that was made up of these stones. So why we're so lucky is not only the boom falling to the street, but all of that concrete could have struck civilians, and this has spread out throughout the area here. So we were extremely lucky this morning. But getting this right, as the commissioner stated, is not about luck. It's about making sure that people who are above our skyline are doing it correctly, and all it appears as though at this time all the documentations were in order.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Mayor, just one quick question.
Yeah,
All the
okay.
injuries were people on the ground, the firefighters and the former civilians. They were all on the street.
That's what it appears now.
And what were they injured by? Was it debris or?
We'll find out. The